a list of a king's mighty men, a law giving cities to a certain family, a promise made to a desert tribe, a man abandoned by his own household, a warning against empty religion, a blind man's simple claim, a judgment on a hidden thought, a commission to speak for a king. What hidden thread connects these scattered moments in Scripture? What ancient story do they collectively tell? They speak of a mystery, a divine calling that echoes through the ages, the quest to understand what it truly means to stand before God. The story begins in the Sinai desert. At the center of the newly formed nation of Israel, a special group was set apart, the tribe of Levi. They were not given land like the other tribes. Their inheritance was God Himself. A priest in a white robe stands in a home, gazing thoughtfully at a wooden table among a small congregation.
This wasn't just a job. The Bible calls it a covenant. In the book of Malachi, God says, "My covenant with him was one of life and peace." This was a sacred agreement. The Levites were to teach God's law and turn people from evil. In return, they were granted a unique protected status.
This covenant was sealed in a moment of dramatic crisis. As a plague ravaged Israel, Phinehas, a grandson of the high priest Aaron, acted with zealous righteousness, turning back God's wrath. For this, God granted him a personal promise, a covenant of perpetual priesthood. They were given cities throughout the land, including 6 cities of refuge, places where those accused of accidental manslaughter could find safety and justice. The priests were to be the guardians of life, peace, and the law. They were the original standing people, but would they remain standing? A covenant requires faithfulness from both parties. The book of Malachi delivers a scathing indictment. The priests had failed. They had corrupted the covenant of Levi. They offered blemished sacrifices, taught a compromised law, and cared more for their own status than for God's honor. And here, the story takes an unexpected turn. The prophet Jeremiah is told to find a small nomadic clan, the Rechabites. They were not from the tribe of Levi. Centuries earlier, their ancestor Jonadab had commanded them to live a simple life in tents, never drinking wine or owning land. Jeremiah tests them. He sets wine before them, but they refuse, honoring the command of their long-dead father. Their faithfulness is profound. To stand before me is the very definition of priestly service. God granted this honor not to the corrupt priests in the temple, but to an obedient family in the wilderness. This principle is echoed in the vision of the prophet Ezekiel. After the destruction of Jerusalem, he sees a new, perfect temple, and ministering in its most sacred spaces are not all Levites, but only a select few, the sons of Zadok. Why them? Because as God says, They kept the charge of my sanctuary when the children of Israel went astray. They were a priesthood purified by fire, a loyal remnant rewarded for their faithfulness. But even before Levi was born, Scripture introduces another, more mysterious priest. After a great battle, the patriarch Abraham is met by a man named Melchizedek. He is called Priest of the Most High God and King of Salem, the ancient name for Jerusalem. Melchizedek is a fascinating figure. He has no recorded genealogy, no beginning or end to his story in Genesis. He just is. He blesses Abraham, and Abraham, the great patriarch, gives him a tithe.
Melchizedek's priesthood is superior to Abraham's, and by extension superior to his descendants, the Levites.
This Melchizedekian priesthood is not based on family or tribe. It is an eternal, universal order. It is the blueprint for a different kind of priest, one who would not inherit the office, but would hold it by the very power of an endless life. A priest who would also be a king. This brings us to the ultimate fulfillment of the priestly story. Jesus of Nazareth is presented as the great high priest, but not from the tribe of Levi. He is, the scripture says, a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. His sacrifice was not a temporary covering for sin, but a perfect, once-for-all act of reconciliation. And with his coming, the very definition of priesthood was transformed. The Apostle Peter declares that all believers are now a royal priesthood, called to declare the praises of God. The office was no longer for a select few. The call to stand before God went out to everyone. And what is the primary function of this new priesthood? The Apostle Paul defines it perfectly. We are ambassadors for Christ, he writes, as though God were making his appeal through us. We implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. The mission has changed. It's no longer about offering sacrifices in a temple, it's about carrying a message. The world is like Job, feeling like a stranger, alienated from its creator. The new priests, the ambassadors, are sent to bridge that gap. Their commission is reconciliation. This requires a new kind of purity, not an external ritual purity, but an internal holiness. It's a standard so high that even a lustful thought is judged as adultery of the heart. It demands we abandon the empty commands and doctrines of men that can corrupt true worship. And it requires the courage to bear witness, to stand before a skeptical world, and like the blind man healed by Jesus, state with simple, profound confidence, I am the one. The story of the priesthood is the story of God calling a people to stand before him, a people set apart, not always by birth, but by a covenant of faithfulness. It began with Levi, in a covenant of life and peace. It was tested by the unfaithful, but proven by the loyal, like the sons of Zadok and the obedient Rechabites. It was foreshadowed by the eternal priest-king Melchizedek, and it was ultimately fulfilled by Christ, who tore the veil and opened the way for all. Today, the call remains to be a royal priesthood, to be ambassadors of reconciliation, to live a life of internal purity and unwavering faithfulness. The unseen thread that connects the ancient warrior, the desert nomad, and the modern believer is the enduring call to be one of the standing people. The only question that remains is, will you answer?